All right, hello everybody. If you are watching this at home, welcome to our new semester of the SCTA club. Joining us today is Edward Gomez. He is our first guest for the mini educator board forum for the spring semester. Gomez, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yes, absolutely. Thank you. So first of all, thank you for having me this evening. It's always a pleasure to do things with SCTA. I've been a proponent for a while, and I'm really happy that this organization this year has really stepped up despite the pandemic. So really proud of that. Again, my name is Ed Gomez. I teach in the history department here at San Bernardino Valley College. I started in 1998. It's hard to believe that I've been here since 1998, but it's been a great ride. I love San Bernardino Valley College, and along the way, part of my understandings of what happened to me is I joined the union because, you know, that's just what I've always known in my life growing up on the south side of Chicago, and I'll talk a little bit more about that. And when I joined the union, the CTA, California Teachers Association, I became aware of a subgroup underneath us known as the Student CTA or the SCTA. And when I became the president of our local union for our entire district of Crafton and Valley, I really thought it was important that before I left, I brought a chapter to our campus. So I did that and funded it and got it off the ground. And now it's been there, I think, like I said, 7, 8 years now. And it's doing a fabulous job. So I'm really excited about the speaker series that you're doing. Also excited about the films you're doing. I'm excited about all the outreach we've been doing. Thank you very much to this year's SCTA. You guys have done an outstanding job, really mean that. And despite the pandemic, where it's extremely hard to do anything, so we really appreciate that. So I've been asked this evening to kind of talk a little bit about my road to becoming a professor and how I got here, and also maybe to interject some things of importance in the field, and even maybe, if I can, put some things in there that might make us reflect upon February, which is the African American Black History Month celebration that we're currently in. So I'm going to try and interject things in there. And at the end, if there are people who have questions or would like me, or at any time for me to maybe talk a little bit more about a certain point, feel free to pop your mic on, or you can wait to the very end and I'll revisit it at that point. So as I said, I teach here in the history department. I was basically hired in my very first semester to teach Chicano history class. And I was surprised that the Chicano history class was actually called Hispanic history when I came on board. And I do know as a Chicano that there's a difference between Hispanic and Chicano. So I said to them, I'm really not, happy about the title. And their answer was, don't worry about it. It's the last time this class is being taught. Nobody wants to learn about it anyway. We don't have anybody in these classes. So if I can just add in, last semester I had 7 Chicano history classes, and this semester I have 7 of them. So I think they were a little off the mark there. I think part of the problem of the issue was a person has to really care about what they're teaching. They have to make it a part of who they are. Otherwise, it becomes just some sort of a play that they go through, and when they're done, they go home in their nice BMW to their nice neighborhood and, go bike riding or whatever, and they forget about what they really are doing as teachers. So when I got there, there was about 9 people in the class, and that was a struggle because I figured this doesn't look good for the sake of what we're going to be doing here. But those 9 people, many of them became very close, actually friends of mine over the periods of years. And I'm in touch with some of them. Unfortunately, some of them are deceased now, but there are some that still stay in touch with me. So we became very close because of that relationship that was created at the initial. Once that class was done, they were looking for a full-time professor because the reason why I had to take the class is one of the full-time professors had left, and they had nobody in the region who could do a Hispanic history class. But I told them, I said, listen, we got to work on this and we got to make it a Chicano history class. And so that's what happened. The next year I was hired full-time. We got rid of the title Hispanic history and we turned it into a Chicano history, which is what I teach and what I really think our neighborhood and our community needs, because it comes from a different perspective. And I'll talk about that a little more as we get along here. Anyway, I came from the south side of Chicago originally. That's where I was born. I was raised there till I was about 17 years old. And I'm going to share stuff because I think it's important that if you're watching this, that you know that you are not the only person going through certain experiences. At the age of 17, I left home. My home was very violent. I was basically an abused child, if you would. I was locked in closets. I was sometimes denied food. I was treated what I would not think anybody would treat an animal or even their worst enemy. And that was done by my mom and my family. So at 17, I left, went to live with my grandparents in Michigan for about 3 or 4 months to finish my senior year of high school. And I had a dream that I would come to California. And really, the dream was spurred off the idea that I would be a musician. I wanted to come out here and play music. I wanted to be involved in the scene, if you will. And so graduation, I packed into my $500 1972 Buick Century. I packed in a bag of clothing, which is all I owned, and a couple books in the trunk. And I worked all summer to get as much money as I could and took graduation from my grandparents, a couple dollars they could give me, filled the tank of my car and drove across the country. The car was falling apart. It was probably shouldn't have even made it, but it did. Came to California and I started working immediately. And even though I had no family, no friends, no home, no job, nothing, I really didn't know what I was doing. I knew that I had something that I had to do in this life. Now, at that point, like I said, I thought it was music. So I got involved in trying to understand the music scene. At the same time, I worked about 70 hours a week. I worked 10 hours a day, 7 days a week to try to pay for, you know, the little places that I could live in and get food. Initially, I slept in an abandoned home. I went to a church. They said, we have a house that was given to us by a dead man and his wife. They're no longer with us. And if you could paint the house and clean it out, we'll let you live in it. There's no electricity. There is cold water if you're interested. And, you know, I took the chance. And so I lived on the floor of an abandoned home, cleaned it out, painted it. And in the meantime, got a job and worked my way to knowing a lot of good people and meeting a lot of good people, and trusting humankind would be good to me. And along the way, that's how I got to where I needed to get. So took a lot of, you know, I think faith and belief in yourself. So you can do it. If you're out there listening to this and you're like, man, I don't know how I'm going to make it through today. You can do it. It ain't going to be easy, but you can do it. So keep the faith, right? Anyway, I got a lot of jobs, you know, doing sales and doing some, you know, things that were just dead end positions, if you will. One of them was a security guard position. I know it's hard to believe Mr. Gomez was once a security guard, but I was. I worked at the Luckman building, 9200 Sunset Boulevard. If you're ever there, you can drive by the building. And what I did is I sat in the back building at 3:30. I'd get there. The gentleman named Charles Luckman would get out of his office. I would walk him up to the elevator, go up the elevator to the top floor, walk him to his personal elevator to his penthouse, lock him in there, and then make sure he got into his home where he cleared that he was okay. Then I'd put my gun away. I'd go back and I'd sit in a desk, and I basically protected an empty garage until midnight. Now, why is that important? Well, I met some people there, and one of the guys I met there was a man from Africa by the name of Osushi. And Osushi told me one day that he was having trouble with his master's degree homework in accounting and business. And he popped the book open, and I said, well, I don't know much, but I think you just do this, you just do that, you just do this, and you just do that. And he did this, and he did that, and he did this. He said, damn, what are you doing here? And I said, what do you mean? He said, dude, you have way more potential than sitting here guarding an empty parking lot. I said, I know, I'm going to be a rock star. He said, well, in the meantime, why don't you try going to school? Well, and I'm going to tell you this story because I think it's important. I said, fuck school. I hated high school. The teachers were rude, disrespectful, and condescending. Now, part of what you need to know is I grew up on the south side of Chicago, and I went to 3 different high schools. I went to 6 different grade schools and elementary schools, so I was always jumped around, right? One of the last schools that I went to was a school of about 8,900 students. Graduating class for me was supposed to be about 1,900 people. Unfortunately, out of those, 1,100 failed or dropped out of school, and 800 graduated. In that school, it was a majority African-American brothers and sisters, and they came from a lower income, and working class whites made up about 20%. So it was about 80-20, maybe 85-15. The importance behind that is because who I was, which was a Latino or Hispanic or Chicano, whatever you want to call me, you know, however you see it. I was probably one of the only ones. There was the Salinas family. They came for a couple of years and said, I'm out, went back to fucking Mexico. So for most of my life, I was the only Latino there. And that kind of put me in a privileged and yet a unique position. Privilege was I wasn't white and I wasn't black. So nobody really knew, and I could be with either whites or blacks. And I became close with both populations of people and learned the struggles of both people and understood. Now, I was a racist. It's hard to believe that because I had been raised in a system of racism, particularly at the ages where I was at. You guys have grown up way past the civil rights movement and see things a little bit differently. But I was at the very beginning of the civil rights movement and barely seeing some of the movement. I do remember people with bumper stickers that said Black Power or t-shirts that said Black Power or Chicano Power or stuff like that, Brown Power. Some of the stuff you don't see anymore because it was just brand new at that time. People were sitting in classes and trying to shut down schools and get, you know, classes about what I teach now, Chicano history, American Indian history, stuff like that. So it was the beginning of that struggle. And because I had come from a racist society, I had many racist views. And it took a lot of interaction with other people to realize that I was a racist. And sooner or later, I had to either become that racist that my family and society had made me, or to break with that and become a human being that I wanted to become. It's a hard road. And I'm talking to you to your heart because there are many of us who have inside of our spirits lessons that have been taught to us, whether inadvertently or advertently, that make us homophobic, that make us hate this kind of person or that kind of person. And that doesn't come easily to go away. It's an active role that you must take. Anyway, so when I got to drive out to California after I graduated from high school, I met a lot of Latinos. Now I couldn't believe there was Latinos everywhere, right? And as a person of Mexican, because my father was from Mexico, of Mexican descent, I felt that everybody was Mexicano. And so I was kind of pumped up. And then I realized some people were not Mexicano. There was brothers from El Salvador and sisters from Guatemala and Nicaragua and other places. And I really was enlightened by all of that. But I still didn't want to go to school until Osuji told me, take one class, and if you don't like it, I'll never bother you again. He was a good brother of mine. So I kind of just placated him. I went and took a couple classes, and I fell in love with the community college system. Fell in love with it. I could not believe that I could take whatever classes I want. I could not believe that I was sitting in a classroom with people from Nigeria, Korea, Guatemala, Mexico, New York, Chicago. It was amazing. I could not believe that in between classes, I could walk over to the McDonald's, or we could lay on the grass and play Frisbee, that we could do whatever it was a whole new experience that I don't think many people in high school understand, right? They've got the view that high school is this place and that's what education is about. Now, unfortunately, or fortunately for me, it depends on how you look at it, I had been out of school for some years. By the time I had left high school, I had given and was able to go to many different colleges. I had a scholarship ride to UCLA and Berkeley. I had a scholarship ride to a place called Cornell. I had a full, if you will, sign by my senator to go to the Annapolis Naval Academy, and I threw them all in the garbage so that I could come and play rock and roll. And as I said, I really hated school. The new idea that school was something that could engage me was something that I found at the community college, and particularly some teachers and some of my colleagues, you know, people who were in class with me, that would push me to become something more than I was probably on destiny to be. And so even though I still was a security guard from 3:30 to midnight, I would get up in the morning, get on the bus, and I would go to Los Angeles City College and I would study. The problem with the community college at the time, and maybe even today, is that from the time I was in community college till I went through my PhD stuff, I had 4 people of color as my teachers. That's it. 4 people of color. That's 3 years at a community college, 3 years at a Cal State, and 4 or 5 years at a UC system. That's a problem, isn't it? And so I'm talking to you because the majority of you coming from San Bernardino Valley College or places like San Bernardino Valley College are the hope of the future. You are the hope. You're the only chance. So if I go back into my high school, my kindergarten through high school, well, kindergarten through 8th grade, I had 0 people of color. And until I went to one school where I had 2 black people, I never had another person of color again. So if you put my entire 28 years of schooling together, I had 6 people of color. That's outrageous, isn't it? That's disgusting. That's crazy. It is an important role that you will play, even if you're not a person of color, to understand what people of color see when they go to a college, what people of color get when they go to university, how they are looked upon and how they are treated. And even if you aren't a person of color, and I'm here to tell you that my mentor in life was a white male who was about 5'4", looked like Mickey Rooney, a little Irish guy, right? But he knew what people went through. He understood how people were treated, and he gave us the opportunity to be respected. So the people that you will be touching in their lives are very different than what it used to be at community colleges, Cal States, and UCs. More and more the state of California, more and more the communities, and even more the country are people of color and different backgrounds that are joining the ranks of higher education. Unfortunately, most of them are going to face the same thing I faced, which is a bunch of racism, sexism, and classism, which doesn't open the minds of young people. As a matter of fact, it could be that you would be ruining and causing others to reject higher education because of what you've done. Now, what if I'm not going to teach higher education, Mr. Goes? What if I'm going to teach kindergarten through 12th grade? Same thing. If we look at the statistics, the current incoming class in the state of California, people of color are about 73% of the state of California. You want to take a guess how many teachers are white? Almost the exact same amount. So it is the inverted, that the young people entering into our school systems from the age of 4, 5, 6, 7, all the way up to 18 or 19 are getting a majority of white teachers. Mr. Gomez, you just told me that your mentor was white and they can be good. That's true, isn't it? Unfortunately, it's not just they can be good, they also have to inspire people. Your job as a teacher is to inspire people, whether they're going to be an engineer or a doctor, whether they're going to be a nurse or an artisan, whether they're going to be a counselor or whatever it is, you have to inspire them. We know that if a person cannot see themselves in that position, it is much harder for them to become that. In other words, a woman going to school, never seeing a woman as whatever she wants to become, it is so much harder for you to project yourself into that position. A brown person, never seeing a brown person, let me repeat that, 28 years of school, not but one brown person. To never see yourself represented in the teachers that came before you is an almost insurmountable task, isn't it? I had 0 brown people kindergarten through 12 and only 1 brown person in the years I was AA, BA, MA, and also PhD. You have to be able to inspire people. And part of how you inspire them is just what I'm doing right now. You have to tell your story. They have to know that just like them, you are the same. And for some people, that's hard because they're not the same. Their parents, their grandparents, their family has never faced INS issues. Their parents, their grandparents, their family has never faced hunger. Their parents, their grandparents, their family has never faced police brutality. Their parents, their grandparents, their family has never faced the discriminatory teachers and principals and policies and procedures. They've never had to face that. And even though they may be the best and best people you've ever known, good human beings, Without understanding what other people have gone through, they cannot feel the empathy. They cannot relate, and therefore they cannot inspire the same as somebody like you and me. We have a duty as teachers and educators, as counselors, and as future people in this field to realize several things. Number one, you're never going to be rich. So get out of the field if that's the only reason you're here. I'm not trying to tell you what to do, but you're not going to have the right things for what you're supposed to be doing. Get out of the field. Make way for somebody who does not want to be rich, but wants to inspire, wants to give back, wants to remember that that person who just wrote you that their mom and dad lost their job, or that person who just wrote you that they don't have a home tonight, may be lying to you, but what if they're not? What if they're not? Which side will you take as the professor or the teacher? Will you give them that chance to make up that work? Will you say to them, I'm sorry that that happened. I know on the campus there's a certain place you can go. Will you extend that help? Will you be there? Or will you say, I'm sorry, the rules are the rules, and I have to fail you? And then what happens? And then what happens? And then what happens? The child, the person, the individual who may have been jacking. True story. I've had several, and I'm not making this up, several students over the time that I've taught who've come to me weeks or months later, sat down. One time, the most important one that I ever remember was a white football player, big guy, over the UC system when I taught at UC Riverside. I don't know if he was a football player, but he was a big guy, and he played one of those sports. They didn't have football, so I don't know what it was. Told me his mom was dying of cancer. Couldn't get the work in. I said, I'll tell you what, let's work on this. We'll figure it out. About 4 weeks later, he came, he sat in my office and just started crying. I thought his mom had died. You know what he told me? Mr. Gomez, I lied to you. I'm sorry. I didn't expect you would be this kind. I didn't expect you would be this generous. I didn't expect that you would be this human. Because of that, I had to come and tell you that I lied to you. My mom's not dying of cancer. She's perfectly fine. I just didn't want to do the work when I had to do it. I understand if you fail me. I've had several occasions like that. But what if it's true? What if somebody's child is hurting and you just say, I'm sorry, there's nothing I can do, right? I think we come from a privileged place. And that's what I was saying earlier, is that the privilege of actually suffering and struggling gives us a perspective of humanity that others might not have. That opens us up to the opportunity to extend beyond what your normal role would be. See, most teachers are good people because why else be a fucking teacher? You ain't gonna get rich. But below that, there's a deeper level, isn't there? It's a commitment to your community, a commitment to what you need to do in this world. My third year at Valley College, I had a very rough year, very rough year. I had several years of police brutality awareness days. The administration, the sheriffs, and the police came and filmed me. I had several white supremacists on the campus who hated that I taught Chicano history the way I did and told everybody that I was an anti-white racist. I had people who literally would go after some of the students that they knew I supported just to hurt them so that it would hurt me. I'm not making this up. I was attacked in meetings by white supremacists who questioned my intellectual ability because I wore regular clothing and I spoke regular language. I was attacked by administrators who also questioned my clothing, my hair length, the things that I was saying. How could I be a good teacher? I must somehow be some deviant. I began to question what my role was. I got a letter in the mail from Monterey Community College. Dear Mr. Gomez, we know who you are. We're opening a Chicano professor. We want you to come. We'll pay you $20,000 more than what you're making there, and you can live in Monterey, California. Now, if you ever never been to Monterey, it's the ocean. It's beautiful. Look it up someday. I took the letter home right away. I was so excited, I couldn't believe it. But I knew I had one more thing I had to do before I would accept the offer. I had to pray for guidance. The answer came back, you will not go. You are meant to be at San Bernardino. I said, are you sure, God? Because I would like to live on the ocean. And man, that would be nice. Instead of the IE. The answer came back, don't question. You have a role. You're supposed to be where you're supposed to be. Follow that. Threw the letter in the garbage. And here I am still at San Bernardino Valley College, the IE. Polluted air, criminal activity, overcrowded streets. My students can't make ends meet. But that's where I'm supposed to be. You have that same chance, young people. Because you could go and make more money. I can guarantee that once you get your college degree and you're all talented, the ones that I know, you're all very talented people. And you'll be even more talented then. You'll have skills that are unprecedented. When in the United States of America, only about 18% of the people have college degrees, and you're going to have one. You could go and do whatever you want. So why would you stay to be a teacher? Why would you want to be a counselor? Why would you care about people coming behind you who may call you an asshole because they don't like teachers, who may not want to do their homework? Just because it's what we do, isn't it? It's what we do. And someday, I can guarantee it, if you stick the road, like myself, you will get people who come back. You'll get letters and emails. You'll get phone calls. And you'll even hear from people. Shit, Mr. Gomez, I remember that crazy old man. Is he still there? Does he still scream about this stuff? Oh, hell yeah, he changed my life. I can't tell you how many times people have thanked me. And I'm not doing this to stroke myself. I'm just saying you're not going to get paid in dollars, but you will know that whatever happens, you have changed lives. Now, the last part of what I want to talk about before I take questions or answers or whatever is why is that necessary? That's necessary because women are still treated as second-class citizens in our society. Even after they go to school, gain the same degrees, do the same work, do everything they're supposed to, they're still second-class citizens. There's work to be done. Black brothers and sisters, some of them don't even get a chance because they're shot in the streets just because of the color of their skin. They're suspended at a 16 times more likely to be expelled or suspended than a white counterpart. 16 times more likely to be expelled from school or suspended than a white counterpart. There's still work to be done. Our brothers and sisters from other countries, immigrants, are still trying to find a way by proving themselves to the society, and still we turn our backs on them. Even after they've done everything we've asked them to do. There's still work to be done. Poor white brothers and sisters who are fed the lies of ignorance and racism and hatred, who act upon that against other people, not because they wanted to, it's because this is what still has to be done. There's much work to be done. As we celebrate Black History Month, we cannot but ignore, if that's all you want to do, but we can't. The statistics are too glaring. That brown brothers and sisters, that poor white brothers and sisters, that American Indian brothers and sisters, LGBTQ plus community brothers and sisters are not treated equally in America, and there's still work to be done. I'll close by saying, and I joke about it all the time, I'm getting old. The people of my generation who marched in the streets in the 60s and 70s, who did the things that some, if you will, progress was made minimal, but at least some. Allow Black people to poop on the same toilet. Wow, big deal, but think about it, that was once a problem. Allow a brown person to sit in a classroom with white people, wow. But remember, that was once a problem. The point is, those people are coming to an end. We're not going to be here much longer. Are you ready? Is your generation engaged in the discussion? You have chosen a profession that, in my opinion, is the only profession that can change the world conditions. You cannot change the world conditions by just one form of engineering or one form of chemistry. You cannot change the world by one form of mathematics or whatever. But you can change it through teaching, can't you? Through education. Because all of those are education, aren't they? All of those are rooted in what you're choosing. Are you ready for what's coming? Are you engaged in the activities that you will need to stand against what's coming? Are you ready to take that next step to make your life committed not just to 1 + 1 = 2, but 1 + 1 = 2 unless it's minus the 2 that dropped out because they didn't have food, because there was nobody reaching out to them at the time that they needed help, because their parents came from an ignorant background and nobody stopped to help those parents so that they could help their children. Are we ready, is what I would ask you. It will be the most rewarding thing you will ever do. I'm letting you know that. But it won't be easy. I come to you after 23 years at San Bernardino Valley College, letting you know there's been incremental changes. Doesn't come fast. But there would have been a lot more pushback had some of us not stood our ground. Remember, my very first class was supposed to be the last time that class was ever taught. Can you imagine San Bernardino Valley College never have taught for 23 years the Chicano history classes that I've taught? It would be a whole different community, wouldn't it? It would have been a whole different educational experience, wouldn't it? That's you now. That's you. And it doesn't matter what you're going to do. You could be doing little kids. You could be doing big kids. You can be doing adults. You'll find your way. You'll find your place. You'll stand your ground. And I'll know that the future will be better because of you. And I'm not saying that as bullshit. If I wanted, I could have gone and made a lot more money in this world somewhere else. But I really did believe that I could make a difference in this world. Not by just what I did, but what I did that you will now do. And every one of you will touch hundreds and thousands of lives. And you will change the directory of this world, our communities at large, and it'll be better for it. I thank you for the opportunity to come and speak to you about why I teach. Things that I faced that were seemingly unsurmountable, right? Sleeping in abandoned homes and in my car. Sometimes I had no food. People who hated me. And I didn't even get into what happened when I was in school. That's a whole nother story for another day. But I hope I leave you with that message of hope. Continue on. Make me proud, but most importantly, make yourself proud. So that someday when you're on SCTAs, let's have Professor or Teacher Catalina or Israel or Gino or Francis, your story will be just as powerful, if not more. And you'll make a whole bunch of more people, more teachers, and we'll change this world one person at a time. And we'll make a big change. So thank you, everybody, for your time. I'll take some questions. If you have any, and if there's anything else or more particulars you want me to go into on any specific thing, I'd love to do that. So anybody out there, put your mic on and let me know what I can answer for you.
Thank you, Gomez, for sharing your story with us. We really much appreciate you coming on here and sharing your story, because I do believe this will at least change some people's viewpoint on the world, and hopefully they do learn a thing or two and they continue with that knowledge and possibly even share that with other people. So we do thank you here for joining us. And I think one of the questions I have for you is like kind of just we're in a special situation where we're in the middle of a pandemic, and I just want to know how vastly it's changed your teaching. Just because I had you personally in your class, but there's a lot of new people who are coming into your online classes. I want to say what's different, what's changed, what do you don't like, and what do you do like, or anything on this sort. So if you want to touch on that.
Good, very good question. So first of all, you're right. And if you know me, and all of you on the screen know me, I'm a more in-person kind of person. So I would much prefer to be in a classroom with you and engage you that way. However, as I hope, displayed to you, I have a commitment to education. And so in that commitment, I have to find any way possible to reach people through an education mode. I don't like the computer because you don't get quite the energy that I can give off, but I'm hoping I'm still giving off energy. So I will tell you that when it first hit the pandemic, I had already been starting down the road to do some online classes. But I was doing it in the traditional way that the teachers in the school had kind of taught me. And that's to put stuff on the screen, have the students do it, and that's it. And Catalina, you know that, unfortunately, you were at the beginning of that. But I did this year realize that if we're going to be in here, I have to talk to the students like this. I have to reach out to you. So I did start the Zoom, and I'm really enjoying them. Does it take more time? Yes. Does it restrict me to my table? Is my back broken because I sit so? Yes. Is it part of what I have to do? Yes. I believe that students need to hear the voices, see the faces, and feel the energy of the professors and their teachers. They have to. And without it, I'm realizing they were not getting the full understanding. And that's originally, if you know me, why I refused to do online classes. They kind of forced me to do them, and I said, I don't want to do it. I don't like that somebody just reading some shit and answering it back in a, true, false, multiple. I don't like that. I don't like it. And they forced me that you got to do it. You got to do it. You got to do it. And I was glad that they forced me, not because those classes were good. I think they were fair. But it pushed me into the arena where now I'm here. And it got me this part, right? The on-screen stuff without me. It got me comfortable enough to do that. Had I had to do all of this at one time, I don't know what I would have done. But I was able to transition from just the on-screen to the on-screen plus the Zoom. And so I guess what I'm saying is, it is more difficult than I've ever done in my life, first of all. And I've been a teacher for 25, 26 years now. So it's much more difficult than ever before. But with the new Zoom on there, I feel a bit more comfortable. And I'm getting more feedback, right, from my students that says, I'm really glad that Professor Gomez does this. It helps me. And as a matter of fact, today, I got a young lady who said, I'm sorry I won't be there today, but I want you to know your Zoom lessons mean everything to me. They're helping me. No other professor that I've had is doing that. So thank you for taking the time. So it's more work, Israel. It's much more difficult. It's painful on my back, and I mean that. I'm not lying to you. I have these things now that I'm putting on chairs and stuff like that, which are, you know, whatever these, I don't even know what these things are called, these strap things that they got pillows on them. Anyway, I can't pull it up, but you know what I'm saying, these little pillow things. Because you know, in the classroom, I run around. I'm running, I'm moving, I'm running around, right? And I'm engaging the class, and I can't do that. But I also have to remember that my students they need us. They need us to give everything we can, especially at this time. And so I have, for each class, I do 2 hours of Zoom, which hopefully gives them an opportunity to hear my craziness, you know, if that's any good, but also to engage, right? And know that somebody out there really does care and wants them to hear and see them and be a part. And even though it's through a piece of plastic, and all of you already knew me before the plastic, so you're kind of in a position, but that may be the only way they'll ever know me. And someday, 20 years from now, yeah, we had this pandemic. I remember this crazy guy used to scream every day, and there was spit all over the screen, and it was wild, but maybe, you know, maybe somehow I'll move them in that way. So yes, and that's what's happening right now. And I'll be honest with you, it's not my preferential way, but I've learned to make it mine now, and I'm working on it. I just wish I had a younger back, because my back is so old, and I'm an old man, right? These days. Other questions?
And you're not old. You're only as old as you feel.
Well, with this chair, I'm feeling mighty old. When I get walking after a few minutes, I'm better. But man, after sitting all day grading, I get about 1,000 assignments a week, you know, and I got to grade. And then every week I have to put in dates into them, and I have to put Zoom links in there, and you have to, you know, answer student questions. You have to put announcements about SCTA, announcements about, you know, matcha. You got to put in stuff that about what the record is. So I have to get the recordings in there each time I do a record. So it is much more work than I've ever done. But again, if you're committed, that's what you got to do. And I learned from my good friend, Professor Calderon, which I know you all have heard from her and seen her, and she's been an inspiration to me in the electronic world, and getting this done. And I really appreciated her help in getting me into the mood to do this, because it was not on my list that I wanted to do this. All righty.
I have a question.
Please.
Being a history teacher, how do you see this pandemic will affect the future of our educational system with our people of color?
Okay, so that's a good question, and I'm going to take it back one step and, you know, do something before we jump into about 10 years ago, maybe a little bit longer than that, the state of California passed what's called the local control funding. The governor said, instead of giving the state the right to give the money where it wants, it would give it to the local districts, who would set up what's called an LCAP, right? Committee of parents, community, and people from the school district, and they would sit what's most important to them. So if you have a large ESL, you might want to put the money there to help it. If you have a large homeless community, whatever, you know, help wherever you need it. They also said that they recognized that if you were ESL, if you were foster child, if you were low income, that you should get more money, because even though $200 for each person or whatever they give is equal treatment, the people who don't speak English or don't have homes or are what, they need a little extra bump, We got to get them up to the equal playing field. So $200 to a person who has a computer, a home, food, good mom, college educated dad and mom is a lot different than $200 to somebody who has nothing, right? So they wanted it to kind of equal it out. And so the money that the districts get comes from a formula. I sat for years at my local school district and said, I don't know why you're putting stuff into all of these things when our students don't even have computer stuff at home. Many of them don't have internet that's, you know, accessible. They're on their phone and maybe they can do it right. So when I said it at Valley College, you're losing students, you're losing people. We need to do something about what now is called the digital divide. So for years, Mr. Gomez was screaming in the wind, and people were, especially the rulers, you know, the people who ran the school districts and the people, they were like, crazy, man. He, you know, he just wants to cry all the Mexicans, all the poor Mexicans, all the poor Indians, all the poor blacks, all the poor, you know, whatever. He just wants to keep, he always says that, always says that. And then the pandemic hit. And then the pandemic hit. And then the pandemic hit. And now guess what they're all talking about? Well, we found out something. There's a digital divide in America. Are you fucking kidding me? You found out there's a digital, you found out that there are people who don't have $2,000-$3,000 computers in their home with $100 a month internet. You found that out? That's like Christopher Columbus discovering America. Were you that dumb? Were you that blind? Were you that ignorant? Did you not know that some of my students didn't have food? Did you not know that many of them couldn't buy books? Did you not know their children don't have medicine? Did you not know that many of them don't have homes? And you thought that they had a good computer with good internet? What kind of dope are you smoking? So the question being, Catalina, this is a two-edged sword, isn't it? But all things are two-edged swords. Now, what do I mean? We have a chance. There's a digital divide. Guess what? There's a digital divide. Poor people don't have shit. Really? Really? I didn't know that. Well, now you know. What are you going to do about it? What are you going to do about it? What are you going to do about it? One way, ignore it, watch black and brown and poor white people die again, and everything will get back to normal. Back to normal. The rich will go on vacations. They'll buy their children large screen TVs for each bedroom. They'll have every computer that they want. They'll go to school and wow, little Timmy's a genius. He knows more about computers than I know. Wow, he's amazing. What about little Tyrone? What about little Juanito? What about poor Bob? Back to business as usual. Or we can use this as a point to jump off in the right direction. What are the things that are needed if a community is going to have equity? You know what equity means? Equity in education. What are the things that we need if a community is going to reach the same plateau, right? $200 here is not the same as $200 here. I'm sorry. $200 here means I might be able to eat. $200 here is we went and got a wine bottle for that last weekend for the, the football game. That was only $35,000 a seat for the full year, right? Two different worlds. So I really can't predict yet, Catalina. As a historian, I can make an educated guess. I don't know if you want to hear the educated guess. I'll give it to you. Unless we get off of our asses, not the rich, not the people who are currently controlling things. Unless we get off of our asses and go to PTA meetings, board meetings, board of trustee meetings, become more educated and go out and teach other people. Unless we get off of our asses, it's going to be business as usual. Listen, we had a 10-month pandemic. and a man who was a multi-billionaire sent $600 checks after 10 months. Well, if you divide the 600 by 10 months, that's $60 a month. If you think you helped America by giving $600 to the people who lost it, you're strangely delusional. So what could happen? Business as usual or revolution. And I'm not talking about guns. I'm talking about mind rip, that we can take this to another level. We could actually change things. When I was growing up, and one of the things that I studied was a system, you know, other than capitalism, where we create more food than any place in the world everybody could eat in America, where we create more things for housing, everybody can have a home in America, where we create more clothing, we create more computers, we create more than anywhere in the world. Everybody could have one. But if it's restricted to only those who can afford it, then not everybody will get one. And so what happens is there are computers that after a couple of years, nobody bought them because they're old, they get thrown away. There's clothing because nobody bought them, it gets thrown away. There's housing, there's food, it gets thrown away. Now you tell me what kind of sense that makes, right? We have a chance, and the chances we could change things. Will we do that? That's up to you guys now. You got to put their feet to the fire and demand it for our children and our future and yourselves. Hope that answers your question there. Anybody else with a question? It's almost 6, and I want to get you guys to back to your works and things you've got to do. Francisco, did you have a question? Earlier you said you might have some stuff you want to ask. Are you good? I think maybe his mic went down. Okay, I think we're good then, right? So thank you again for the opportunity to speak to you, SCTA. I hope I spoke to your hearts and your spirits and your minds, and take what I say from my heart to your heart, because I really mean it. And all of you who know me know that's my person, if you will. And I have great faith and hope that you will, when I'm long gone, you'll still be here changing lives. And that's like the best thing in the world, is to know that you'll pass the baton to those who are capable, not just in skill, but in spirit. Thank you, guys. Have a great evening.
Thank you, Gomez.
I love hearing you speak, Gomez. You're really passionate about what you do.
Thank you, sister.
Okay, so that pretty much wraps up what we're doing here. So if you're watching this at home, please, if you can, share these with whoever you think might be interested in. And then we'll see you until the next Educator Board Forum, which will be next
And you
month.
got a film?
So
you got a film coming up, don't you? On what day is the film?
Yes. The 25th, I believe. I had to check the calendar, but it's in the next 2 weeks. So we have that coming up. So
keep an eye on. Keep an eye on your stuff. Good.
Mm-hmm. So we will be sharing that very soon with people, and yeah. So thank you for joining us, and thank you, Ed Gomez, for sharing your story. I'm pretty sure a lot of people are going to take away with this with a vastful new knowledge, and hopefully they continue with that. So thank you so much.
Thank you. Take care. Well, good night.
Okay. Good night.
Good night, Gomez.